SABA Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Chad Shapiro with SABA Radio, and I want you to do us a big favor. If you're watching this on Facebook, share it out there around the world. And if you're listening to this on the radio, yeah, share that too and save it on your phone or wherever. I have it on my phone, sabaradio.org. As an icon there, I just click it and listen to great music and listen to great pastors like we have here today with Kevin Prather. Pastor Kevin is with us today. I thank you for your time, my friend, and I don't want them to keep hearing from me. I would love to hear from you. If you could kind of introduce yourself, where your church is, the name of your church, so that everybody, this is one of the great churches in SABA and in San Antonio in general. So if you are looking for a church home, get over there to Stonebridge. Go ahead, Pastor Kevin. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Chad. Again, my name is Kevin Prather, and I am the pastor of the Stonebridge Baptist Church. We're on the far west side on 7684 Tally Road, and so we are we're out in that area that's just booming, and I guess the closest 1604 in Culebra. As you head out towards Castroville, we're right there at Old Tally Road, and that's where our church is.
That's awesome. And how long have you been in ministry?
34 years.
Whoa, praise God. Thank you for all that you do. I know that has changed many lives through your life, and that sacrificial giving yourself to the Lord and to the community at large is such a blessing.
It's the only way anybody is in ministry that long is the grace of God, because to me it's humbling. It's scary to think of when I look back on the number of guys that started out with me in seminary that are no longer in the race, and it's not because I'm better. I'm not. It's just God's graciousness, and so I'm thankful that He's allowed me that privilege.
That's so awesome. Well, that's great, and we'll continue praying that even the best times will be yet to come. That's all. What about your family? Tell us a little bit about your family.
Okay, I'm married to Priscilla, and in May of next month, we're our 30-year anniversary, and so time flies like unbelievably fast. And it was just yesterday. We're young kids, and so here we are, and I have two children. Christian, who is 28, and he'll be getting married this July, and so our family's about to expand, and that's amazing to me. And my daughter Hannah is 24, and so I'm just, my family is my great earthly blessing. I'm very, very thankful for them.
Yeah, praise God. And so with the great track record of ministry, I think many times people look at somebody who served that long and think, I still struggle with my faith, or I still doubt, and maybe think that you never have ever before. But obviously we all have to make a choice, to follow. And what was a key factor in kind of making you make the decision that, Jesus really did walk this earth, die on the cross, was resurrected 3 days later? What was a key thing that maybe will help somebody that's a little bit on the fence, that may be watching or listening to this?
Sure. There's really a couple of aspects to that. One, my family of origin was my parents, my household. I'm very blessed to have been raised by godly parents, and so I grew up around God and the things of God, and I was immersed in that. And at the same time, the church that I attended, in church history books, I didn't know it was that big of a deal until I was in seminary, and we were in church history part 2, and my church was mentioned in a church history book. We were the part in San Antonio. It was the epicenter when there was an authentic revival that broke out in the early 70s in San Antonio, and that I still have really vivid memories of that. It wasn't anything bizarre. It wasn't anything, weird. It was just that God came in power, and there was about a 3-year period where I mean, lives were just getting radically transformed, and people were really excited about Jesus. And so I grew up seeing it at home, but I also in church life, I knew that the Lord was working out. I'm a young kid, but I can see what is doing. And so I make a decision when I'm younger, and like like a lot of people do. I mean, I'd like to say that I've always walked with God just perfectly, but I actually went through a season of a pretty rough rebellion in my teenage years, and all the way through my college years. And so I grew up when I was a kid. I was real sickly, and in and out of hospitals. I had real bad asthma, and back then that's just what you did. And so I started to read a lot. I mean, that reading was if I wasn't out playing and doing stuff with my friends, if I was sick, man. And if I was sick and indoors, I was reading. And I started to read, and I started to read all kinds of things about how I exercise, this, that, and the other. Maybe I could work through my asthma. So I got really heavy into weightlifting and a bunch of other stuff. And then the tragic irony is, for me, when I look back, but again, God redeems things and uses things. When God started to give me grace. And actually, in my teenage years, I started to have less and less problems with asthma. I started to fill out, and I started to be, stronger. This, that, and the other. I used His blessing, and I started to live the life that I thought um, every guy that was cool my age should live, right? And so, man, I'm doing all the things that I was in very strong rebellion against God, just trying to party, to do every this, that, and the other. And so that led to some pretty dark places. And God gave me grace. I made it through Baylor while I'm still, living pretty wildly. And but I was miserable. I was miserable inside, but I never let people know that. I knew that, and that's because I was grieving God profoundly. And what He did was I became the prodigal who left home, and so to speak, my father's home, my heavenly father's home, in that sense, and just went to a far off country. And God let me wake up with, you know, uh, with that sense of, well, what have I done? How did I get here? And and this is actually a part of that spiritual formation, because during that time I started to ask questions that people will sometimes say, well, am I a Christian because I was just raised in a Christian house? So I was exploring I was looking at other religions in there and trying to read them. But every time I would read stuff, it seemed, no matter what, and I was reading the original source materials. And so no matter what I was reading, it seemed like it was very clear to me, well, this can't be true. This isn't true. And so here I was, and from the outside at that point in my life, people might have said, "Well, he's doing pretty good. He's on a great career path, and he seems to kind of have things together." I was working at USAA, but again, now I graduated from Baylor. I'm miserable inside. No one knows it, and my big spiritual liberation time came. I would say when I'm 23, and I remember sitting at my kitchen table one day, and I said, "God, I give up.
Mm.
Whatever you want, just take it." And I started to I gave everything, my dating life, finances, future, vocation. I quit. I said, whatever you want. I surrendered to the best of my understanding, because I realized that that the only way I was ever going to experience or to have true life was going to be found in Christ. And among the things that was helpful, there were some friends that I was meeting at church, that I started going back to church, who who were into apologetics, and they would answer some of my questions. And I met some, in other words, I met some Christians who were really intelligent and had actually thought deeply about some of the things that I wrestle with inside. So that's really kind of all those things were going on at one time. So things happened in phases, and so that I look at that time when I was 23, the Lord, when I waking up in the pig pen, so to speak, and just want to come back to my Father's house, and God just started a new trajectory for me, and I'm very thankful. I know my life, I've not been perfect, certainly since then. And any Christian, I always tell people when I preach and when I talk, any Christian that says, "Oh, I'm perfect, I've arrived," run away because they're lying. And so, um, for me, that one of the ways that God redeemed that period of my life was that He's given me a heart for people that are on the outside. I know what it's like to be the guy that people look at and go, "Oh man, he's too rough around the edges," or God's not going to do anything with someone like him. And so that's just I know what it's like to be the tax collector. I guess I'll say that. And
Yeah,
so I have a heart in my space in my heart is very special for that person.
man, that's awesome.
Talk too much. So I'm sorry.
Oh, please, that's why we're here. This is awesome. This is so great. So, what is some of the vision of the ministry? You know, what's your favorite part? What's the vision? What do you see you guys headed at Stonebridge?
Well, our vision statement is to be a church in the community for the communities in the world, and we've been praying and fleshing that out now just for the past 4 years. Um, this June will be my 6 year anniversary, and so what that's been looking like in our church is fascinating to me. That I'm thankful that our church is actually it's a praying church, and so a lot of times, and I've served when I was in different church contexts when I was a youth minister, church planter, and I've preached around different places. Sometimes prayer meetings in churches can just be kind of, which we need to pray for the sick, but here's our sick list, and let's just say a prayer for them, and then everybody moves along. But our church is one where we actually every week we walk through the adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication model together as a and so and we so our prayer times are they're meaningful. And so we've been praying about what does that look like. And through all of that, just since we started to get that sense that God wanted us to be that kind of a church, there's been several things that have been birthed. And so we, for a while, we sponsored some missionaries over in Brazil and above and beyond just what we're doing with our denomination. And right now, we have two sister churches in Italy that we have a really good relationship with, and that I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to unfold over the course of this year. And we have people who are working in like with pregnancy centers, and then we have a big serve team that goes out and blesses people in the community and does different things that are serving. And so during the COVID shutdown, some of those things changed, right? Because of what you could and couldn't do. But right now, we're seeing a lot of the ministries scale back up, and so people are getting back out into the communities. And so that's a big part of our vision is not just to exist for ourselves and not just to make people uh, you know, comfortable. And by that I mean, I think one of the great dangers in evangelicalism today is the appealing to the consumer mentality that the church growth movement inadvertently rather spawned. And so we don't want to just do things to get people to, hey, come sit and just let us do everything for you. We actually want to, we believe it's our calling to equip every person, to give everyone an opportunity to serve, that everyone is supposed to be on mission. And one of the things that we're actually working on that we'll be launching, we're beta testing that starting at the end of May as a greenhouse, and it's going to be a seminary kind of an experience for people who are wanting to grow in lay leadership. And what we're hoping to do from that is we have a partnering possibility now with Southern Baptist Theological Seminary as well as Boyce College. If we continue to take certain steps, then we'll be able to actually partner with them so people could get degrees through there. So really, our prayer for the church is that we would be a church that is an equipping church, a church that is absolutely clinging to the once and historic faith, a church that is on mission in the community and around the world, and a church that is training and raising people up, and a church that is blessing the neighborhood. So those are like those are the things that we're praying and we're focusing on, and our prayer is that we'll be able to start a third service, Lord willing, at the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022, and then we're going to have to take some other steps beyond that. But it's very much not about us. We want our consistent prayer. And it's not just the staff, but it's when you have lay people praying this, it's just amazing. God, what do you want? We just want you to glorify yourself. And
Mm.
so that for for God to be glorified in our church is our main desire, our main passion. So that's what we pray about, and that's what we talk about. And so we do things a little bit differently. We don't do plug and play ministry where we look at every little area and we kind of pray over, Lord, what do you want us to do here? What's going on? And so it may take us a little longer sometimes to get certain things in place, but we know we've prayed through them and we want to hear from God, and we want to dive deeply into the Word, and we want to take a look at the culture, what we need to do, and so it's a different place. I'm very thankful for the people. They're gracious, and it's just been a blessing to watch what God's been doing.
That's awesome. That's so great. I love it. Great vision. So in ministry, sometimes some funny things, strange things happen, and for the rest of us, it helps to know that we're not the only ones that things happen. What's something that maybe sticks out in your mind?
Well, when you ask me, yeah, so you have these extremes, right? I mean, and it's I think that sometimes people have a view if you're a pastor or you're in ministry, right, that we have this nice little sheltered life where everything is just comfortable and cozy, and oh, you guys work an hour a week or whatnot. They don't. I mean, it's hard to explain to people, right? If they don't know. But I was just looking back, and there's a lot of things over 34 years, and honestly, you know, to me, a lot of the funny things are just I'm a self-effacing person, and so I look at sometimes some things that I've done or just said or just kind of stumbled into, and just like that was silly. But for specific sakes, I thought of a few things that were on the different like extremes. Like to me, a couple of funny things that just I still kind of laugh about. I'm also kind of a quirky guy, so that may not be as humorous as others. But and then a couple of things that were like, wow, wake up calls. Um, One of the one I share with people always, it's not a bragging thing. It's just a sense of people understanding that sometimes in ministry you're going to have some really significant choices, whether you're going to try to please God or people, and it may be scary. And so I had a death threat when I was in Dallas because I was bringing. I mean, mind you, I'm young. I'm in seminary, and this was in a rough part of Dallas, right? And so I'm young. I'm in seminary, and I just think I love Jesus, and I want everybody else to love Jesus, and I'm sure the church loves Jesus, and and so I didn't know any better. I was drive one day. I drove by on the way to church, and there were these projects, and there were a bunch of black kids that were youth age out there playing football. So I pulled over, said hi, introduced myself, and they were kind of like, who is this guy at first? And I started throwing the football with them. Then, so over time, I become like the all-time quarterback. They play me down. So then I started bringing these kids to church. No, I didn't. I get the church van. I'm loading them up, bringing them. Now they fit in great with the youth because they all knew each other. The youth had no problem with each other, but apparently, some people in the church didn't take kindly to that, and so I came back. And this is dating me, but I came back to the house one day, or my apartment rather. I lived in 420 glorious square feet of a efficiency apartment, and remember those old answering machines with a little tape, and so you didn't have caller ID, that kind of thing. And I remember playing my messages, and all of a sudden, I mean, it was a real deep drawl, southern drawl that basically, and a few choice words were thrown in. I was going to get my head blown off if I kept bringing those. And
Wow.
then it was racial epithets to church. And I thought, well, that's one of those, you're a young guy, come to Jesus kind of a thing. Like, wow, Lord, what do I really would like to not die, and this guy sounds pretty angry. But I knew that I was supposed to please the Lord, and God had placed those young people in my life for a reason. And it was interesting. I went to my pastor, and that guy at that time was just trying to hang on to his. I mean, it was a rough place, and so I was left kind of hanging out there. But God
Wow.
took care of things, and He protected me. I'm alive. There was
Amen.
a guy in Wisconsin. Oh man, there was a guy when I was a church planter in Wisconsin who I was doing a Bible study at the little martial arts place where I was. The sensei was he called himself a cultural public Buddhist. Real interesting guy, but he got really interested in Christianity, and so John started to ask, "Hey, would you do a Bible study?" Now, some people find in that community that's like a really it's a no-no. You don't bring
Mm.
Christianity and that stuff. And so there's this really huge guy, and his name was Larry. I remember that. And so he uh, he had black belts in a couple of different disciplines. And one day I'm at home. I'm married now. I've got a small kid. This Christian was a small child, and I get a phone call from John the Simpson. He goes, "Hey, man, I don't, you're still gonna do the Bible study up here, right?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I just thought you might want to know. Larry called me, and he says he's gonna meet you in a parking lot, and he's gonna beat you up because he." I told him he couldn't do that or he'd get kicked out, but he said he was going to, and but I told him you could take care of yourself. I thought, John, what are you saying?
Oh,
This guy
good.
is huge, right? And so I thought, wow. So what do you do, right? So I remember that day I'm driving. It's always snow all over Wisconsin, right? So I'm driving in the snow, going to the gym. I got my gym bag, and I thought, man, I'm gonna get jumped in the parking lot by a massive guy who hates God and hates Christians and hates
Wow.
me for some reason. And
Yeah.
so I get out there, and I remember praying, I'm praying and praying, but I got to show up because we had like 10 guys coming to this Bible study. And so I get out of my car. I don't see Larry. I'm walking inside. I'm thinking, man, Larry, where are you? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm okay. So I go in the locker room, and it was crazy because there was nobody in there. I walk around the corner, and I walk like we like smack dab into each other. And I stopped, and I thought, well, here we go. And so God gave me grace, and I said, "Hey, Larry, how you doing?" And it was crazy. God melted his heart. He just like shrunk down and got real calm. And he said, "Oh, I'm fine." And then he walked. I never saw him again. I mean, I wish that I could say he came to Christ and everything else, but God removed that, I guess. And we got to see other young guys come to Christ, but that
Praise
was a real
God.
test. So those are like the scary things. But there are a couple of quick funny ones. Like there's one, and do not if there's any young person listening, do not do
Yeah.
this to your pastor. When I was a youth minister in Houston, they would let us have youth nights. So once, and it was a big church, and so like once a month we would have a youth night, and I would preach, and so we were baptizing at night. Well, the pastor's one of the pastor's kids got a little. I didn't know it until I was actually in the baptistry. Now I have my preaching clothes on, so I mean, I have the waders on, and he poked little pinholes inside the waders. So I'm in the water, and all of a sudden I thought, man, this feels weird. And all of a sudden I started to realize these things are starting to, there's water coming in here.
Oh,
And
no.
so I've got the baptisms, we got through those, and then I'm trying to get out, and it's really heavy. So I'm pulling myself out, and my pants are soaked. I'm
Oh,
supposed to preach in like 10 minutes, right? And
oh,
so I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? And so all this crack team of people like got together, and they're like had all these massive amount of hair dryers out there. And so I went out with like kind of mostly dried pants and preached.
oh,
It was really kind of awkward.
great.
And
Yeah.
then I would say just the weirdest, not the weirdest, but the most the most uncomfortable thing. But it was happening, and so all you could do at that point was I was doing a funeral. I won't say where. Okay, I'll just say over 34 years I've been in a few places. I
Yeah.
was doing a funeral for someone, and this individual, were you to have known her, were you to sweet, petite, just always nice little old lady, and always a kind word. And so you have this image, and she knew all the right thing to say. So so when she passed away, the family met with me, and as we do, and we were planning the ceremony, just talking about, and they said, well, let's say, well, she was also a part of the VFW, and she liked to volunteer there, and some people there would also like to know if they could speak at the funeral. And so I'm real careful because
Mm.
sometimes that can get out of control. And so I said, well, I just want to make sure that if I can meet with them, because the funeral, it really does need to be worshipful. I want to make sure we're not. Oh, okay, okay, no, no. So we have the whole thing is planned out. I met with someone from the VFW, and they said, "Yeah, I just want to be able to share how she helped out." And I understand, Pastor. Yes, well. So this place is packed. It's there's many people present, and it was interesting because most all the church was in like one side and then the VFW people on the other. And so we're up there, and things are going well. And the family had a family representative share, and it was beautiful, and shared her testimony, and it was very wonderful. And then the VFW person got up and started to share, and things are going along fine. I'm sitting on the platform, I'm looking at people, and then all of a sudden, I thought, "Oh my soul, this is not happening." He starts to he just takes a sharp left turn. So this is why if anybody, yeah, well, so he takes a sharp left turn and says, "Oh yeah, and who can forget her name? Boy, she loved to dance, you know." And I thought, well, okay, well, oh, where it's going. Boy, yeah, when she would, at the end of the night, and she'd be smoking a cigar and dancing on top of tables with a bud in her hand, and I sat there, and so she had this secret life no one knew anything about, and it was right there in the church. And so I looked out from the platform. I'm supposed to get up and now preach in about right after this time, right? And so I'm looking, and half the church, you can see jaws drop. They had no idea. And
Wow.
then people started to chuckle. They were looking at me like, good luck coming back from this one.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
VFW people are all they're all dying laughing, just having a great time, remembering all these things that no one knew anything about. And
Wow.
then he leaves, he sits down. Now I'm supposed to get up and preach. That was that was funny to me because
That's good.
yeah, that's not something that that you want to try to get up. But God gave grace to actually preach the gospel, and
Oh, man,
um,
I love it.
so it worked out well. But it was a very uncomfortable, awkward few moments.
I love it. Great, great stories. So looking back, like when you were younger, in ministry, what do you wish you knew then that you kind of know now? You could look back and tell yourself.
One, it's a long obedience in the same direction, and that's from Eugene Peterson. So I mean, you hear it all. You know it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it is. God's grace is new every day, and you're going to go through a lot of ups and downs, and sometimes they're really going to be tough. And sometimes the worst attacks may come even from within the church. And but you just have to. I don't know. I think that I entered ministry a little. Uh, but well, I didn't know that I would experience all that she would experience. I guess in terms of some of the trials, I wouldn't change a thing though. I mean, they
Yeah,
all served a purpose. But
right.
and then I would also tell myself just to make sure. I mean, it was told to me early, and so I'm thankful for that. But don't never sacrifice your family on the altar of ministry. Meaning, don't be so busy you miss your. Don't you have your date night. Make sure you're spending time with your children. You know, don't mess that area up. And so I'm very thankful that I listened, and I would I would look at me, and I would say, look, at times people may not understand that. That was the part that was interesting to me. Sometimes people just, well, I know it's your day off, or I know it's your date night, but it's just one quick thing, just to be able to know how to draw a little bit better boundaries at times. If that makes sense to be able to say no, because by
That's good.
and large, God gave a lot of grace that we did fairly well with that. But there were also times looking back that I needed to learn how to say no a little
Yeah,
bit more.
that's good.
And if people were upset about it, you can't, if you're available all the time, you're going to end up getting burnt out. And I
Yeah,
actually hit a place one time where I look at that, um, and I would trace a lot of it just to not having to learn how to say no better.
mhm,
That I was just fried, man.
yeah,
I hit a dangerous part of burnout, and so. But again, God redeemed that. But I would tell myself to be really, really careful. You're going to have to. You do have to learn how to say.
sure.
And that goes for anybody, not no matter what you do.
Right,
If
right.
you say yes to everything, you're not God,
Yeah,
And so
right.
yeah, I think that comes to mind immediately.
That's a good word. So we have your sermons, and they're going live on SABA Radio. And what are some of the things that excite you about SABA Radio, the initiative to share, pastors underneath SABA's umbrella around there? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, first, I pray that God is glorified in everything that SABA Radio does, and I think that, to me, the idea that there would be a platform where, to me, it's just another way for the gospel to get out.
Yeah.
And so, if I understand correctly from a friend who, I think SABA Radio is also, it's not just in San Antonio, but you have it's being pinged from different places around the world, right? So to
Digital,
me,
anywhere on the internet. Yeah.
that's amazing to me, and I think that I'm excited about the possibilities of what that might mean for the advancement of the gospel, and also for believers to be encouraged, and perhaps some ministers to be equipped. You
Yeah.
know, that's huge. And so I just pray that God continues to bless what you guys are doing, and that you all leverage that for his glory and kingdom purposes.
Yes, thank you, man. This has been awesome. So, if you guys are watching, get to Saba Radio, get to Pastor Kevin's preaching when he's doing it from Stonebridge, and we will be blessed for it. I thank you for your time. I know you're busy, but it's really helpful to all of us watching and listening, and everybody that is watching. Share it, like it, comment, get on Saba Radio, and let's continue to grow and move forward for the glory of God. Take care. God bless you. Thank you all.
SABA Radio.